They say love can be beautiful, but sometimes it turns into something dark, something deadly. This is the story of Cati Blauvelt, a young woman who thought she married a protector, a soldier. But in the end, it was that very man who became her biggest threat. Today, I'll walk you through how jealousy, obsession, and betrayal led to a heartbreaking murder and a manhunt that lasted 6 long years. Stay with me, because this is one story you won't forget. Who was Cati Blauvelt? Before the headlines, before the manhunt, before the betrayal that would end her life, she was just a girl with dreams, hopes, and a heart full of love. Born and raised in the quiet town of Simpsonville, South Carolina, Cati was known by everyone for her bright smile, the kind of smile that felt like a warm hug on a cold day. She loved animals, loved her friends, and like many young women, dreamed of a simple life. The kind where you fall in love, get married, maybe have a family, and just live happily ever after. But life had other plans. At just 22 years old, Cati had her whole future ahead of her. But what none of her family or friends could have seen coming was how that very future would be stolen from her by the one person who promised to protect it. You see, Cati wasn't just anyone's wife. She was married to a soldier, a U.S. Army recruiter named John Blauvelt. And for a while, it probably felt like a dream come true. After all, what could be safer than marrying a man in uniform? A man trained to defend, to serve, to protect? Isn't that what every girl's father dreams of when she brings home a man? But sometimes the uniform hides the darkest of hearts. Cati met John when she was still young, full of that wide-eyed innocence only found in people who haven't yet been broken by life. He was older, charming, confident, the kind of man who knew exactly what to say and when to say it. And like so many women before her, Cati fell. They dated, fell in love, or at least what she thought was love. And soon they got married. A wedding ring, a new last name, the start of what should have been a beautiful journey. But isn't it strange how sometimes the same person who gives you butterflies becomes the very reason you lose sleep at night? At first, everything seemed normal. The dates, the sweet words, the promises of forever. But as time passed, the cracks began to show. John wasn't just protective, he was controlling, possessive, the kind of man who needed to know where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing every single second. It started small like it always does. A question here, a suspicious look there, a random accusation that made no sense. And before she knew it, the man she married started to feel less like a partner and more like a prison guard. Cati's friends noticed. Her family noticed. But what do you do when the man you fear is also the man you vow to love? Is it still love when you're scared? Is it still a marriage when every argument feels like a trap? For Cati, those questions probably haunted her every night. John's jealousy wasn't just the harmless kind you see in movies. It was dark, dangerous, and it kept growing. Every time Cati tried to pull away, John pulled harder. Every time she tried to breathe, he found a new way to suffocate her. It's heartbreaking, really. How many women stay in relationships like this, thinking they can fix it, thinking he'll change, that if I just try harder, love harder, maybe he'll see me, maybe he'll remember the man he used to be. But monsters don't change, they just learn to hide better. Eventually, Cati found the courage to leave. Can you imagine the strength it takes to look the person you promised forever to the person who knows every inch of your life and say, I'm done? She filed for divorce. She started pulling away, trying to build a new life. A life where she didn't have to answer to anyone. A life where she could smile and mean it. But here's the thing about controlling men. They don't let go easily, especially when they think they own you. And to John, Cati wasn't just his wife. She was his possession. And the idea of losing her, of seeing her happy without him, that was something he couldn't stomach. They say leaving an abusive partner is the most dangerous time for a woman. And sadly, that proved to be true for Cati. As Cati tried to move forward, John's darkness grew. What was once jealous words became cold, calculated actions. And somewhere deep down, John made up his mind. If he couldn't have her, no one would. And so the stage was set. A young woman trying to escape. A jealous, angry husband refusing to let go. And a love story that was never really about love at all. It was about power, control, possession. And soon it would all come to a tragic end. Because in the end, the uniform didn't make John a hero. It didn't make him a protector. It made him the perfect predator. And Cati? She was just another young woman, caught in the crosshairs of a man who mistook love for ownership. Up next, what really happened on that fateful October day? How did a simple meeting with a friend turn into a murder scene? Stay with me. On the surface, John Blauvelt was every bit the American dream. A U.S. Army recruiter, disciplined, respected, the kind of man who wore his uniform like a badge of honor. To the world, he was a soldier, a protector. To Cati, he was her husband. But isn't it terrifying how easy it is to hide the darkest parts of yourself behind a smile? How the very hand sworn protect can be the same hand that destroy you. At first, John was charming, sweet, the kind of man who made promises with conviction. I'll love you forever. I'll protect you, no matter what. But soon, those promises became twisted. It started like it always does, subtle, almost invisible. A raised eyebrow when she laughed too loud around another man. A suspicious glance when she came home a little late. Innocent questions. Where were you? Who were you with? Why didn't you answer your phone? And then the accusations. You're cheating, aren't you? Don't lie to me, Cati. The walls began closing in. Friends and family saw the change in her. The bright, bubbly Cati who once lit up every room started shrinking, dimming like a flame starved of oxygen. John's love, if you could even call it that, came with conditions, rules, demands. And when Cati broke those rules, even just by breathing wrong, John's temper flared. There were whispers of violence, bruises that didn't have explanations, tears she didn't want to talk about. Isn't that the cruelest part? When home, the one place meant to be safe, becomes a battlefield. Cati tried to hold on. Maybe she loved him. Maybe she remembered the man he used to be. Maybe, like so many women, she was simply afraid. Afraid of starting over. Afraid of what he might do. Afraid of what people would say. But there comes a moment where enough is enough. And for Cati, that moment came when she finally did the bravest thing any abused woman can do. She filed for divorce. The papers were served. The message was loud and clear. I'm done. I want out. But with men like John, leaving isn't easy. For him, the divorce wasn't just a breakup. It was betrayal, an insult to his pride, an attack on his control. And when a controlling man feels power slipping through his fingers, what do you think happens? John didn't let go. He couldn't. Instead, he spiraled, obsession taking root where love was supposed to be. He stalked her, threatened her, made sure she knew that no matter where she ran, he'd be watching. And deep down, Cati must have felt it, that chilling realization. He's not going to let me go. Because for John Blauvelt, if he couldn't have Cati, no one could. And that is where the story takes its darkest turn. October 24th, 2016 started like any other day. Cati went about her morning, maybe fed her pets, maybe sipped her coffee staring out the window, wondering if today would finally feel normal again. But little did she know that day would be her last. She had plans, just like any 22-year-old woman trying to pick up the pieces of a broken life. Some say she was meeting a friend. Others say she was running errands. But somewhere in the middle of that ordinary day, Cati crossed paths with John. What was said, what was promised, we'll never know. But what we do know is that Cati never came home. As the sun began to set and night crept in, her family felt it, that gut-wrenching, soul-crushing feeling that something was terribly wrong. She wasn't answering her phone. She wasn't replying to texts. And everyone who loved her felt it. Where was Cati? Hours later, the search began. Calls were made. Texts were sent. Her face, that beautiful, smiling face, plastered all over Facebook. Desperate pleas. Has anyone seen Cati? And then the worst possible news. Cati's body was found, discarded like trash in an abandoned house. Cold, alone, gone. She had been stabbed. Multiple times. A crime of passion? No, this was a crime of rage, of obsession, of control. That abandoned house became her tomb, the place where her story ended, and John's real face was finally revealed. Police arrived, sirens wailing through the night. The small town of Simpsonville shook to its core. How could this happen? How could a man trained to protect turn into a monster? Investigators wasted no time. They knew exactly where to look. And every trail, every piece of evidence pointed right back to one man, John Blauvelt. But by the time they knocked on his door, John was gone, vanished. Like a coward, he ran, leaving behind blood, heartbreak, and a shattered family. Cati's family forced to bury their daughter, while her killer disappeared into the night. And just like that, the manhunt began. For years, John Blauvelt became a ghost. A soldier, now a fugitive. A husband, now a murderer. And as days turned to months and months into years, one question haunted everyone. Where is John Blauvelt? But what really happened in those final moments? Why did John snap? And how did he manage to stay hidden for so long? From the moment Cati Blauvelt's lifeless body was discovered, detectives knew this wasn't random. The brutality, the rage, it screamed to someone close. Someone who once loved her. Someone who now wanted her gone. All roads led to one man, John Blauvelt, the estranged husband, the soldier, the man who had everything to lose the moment Cati said, "I want out." As investigators dug deeper, the evidence piled up like a house of cards ready to fall. Phone records, threats, witness statements of prior abuse. John had motive, John had opportunity, and John had disappeared. Before detectives could officially slap the cuffs on him, John did what cowards do. He ran. But he didn't run alone. Shockingly, John Blauvelt vanished with a teenage girl, 17-year-old Hannah Thompson, the daughter of one of John's acquaintances. A girl barely out of high school. What did he say to her? What promises did he make? Was she a willing companion or another victim too afraid to say no? No one knew for sure. But one thing was clear. Hannah was gone and John was responsible. In the blink of an eye, John and Hannah slipped out of Simpsonville, South Carolina, leaving behind two shattered families and a community drowning in fear and heartbreak. The next few days turned into weeks as John and Hannah vanished off the map. John was no longer just a suspect. He was now a fugitive, wanted for murder. And as the search expanded, so did the charges. A federal arrest warrant was swiftly issued. John Blauvelt, once a decorated Army recruiter, was now a wanted man, hunted by the FBI. His face plastered across America's most wanted lists. News outlets picked up the story, warning the nation, armed and dangerous, traveling with a minor. If seen, do not approach. Somewhere out there, John was running, hiding, looking over his shoulder, but somehow always one step ahead, with Hannah by his side. The question haunted everyone. Was she running with him or from him? Either way, the chase was on. For 6 long years, John Blauvelt became a ghost, slipping through fingers, disappearing into the shadows of America's vast highways and backroads. It was as if the ground swallowed him whole. Every few months, a sighting would surface. Oregon, Nevada, Southern California. Anonymous tips would come in. I think I saw him working construction. I swear that's him at a gas station. He's growing a beard, going by another name. And each time law enforcement would chase the lead, each time he was gone, a ghost with a face on every wanted poster. The FBI joined the hunt, releasing statements urging the public. John Blauvelt is considered armed and dangerous. If you see him, call immediately. But catching a man like John, a trained soldier, a recruiter skilled in survival, a manipulator who knew how to lie, charm, disappear. It was like hunting smoke. And all the while, the question that haunted everyone wasn't just where is he? It was where's Hannah? Did she run away too? Was she being held against her will? Was she alive? For months, her family waited, hoping, praying for a sign. And then one day, Hannah surfaced, safe, alive. But the details of her time with John, locked away, hidden, maybe too painful to speak of, maybe too dangerous to share. And John, he was already gone. The manhunt stretched on, through scorching deserts, over icy mountains, across the endless cities where a face can disappear into the crowd. News reports chronicled every dead-end lead. Possible sighting in Las Vegas, no confirmation. Reported tip places Blauvelt near Portland, false alarm. And through it all, two families were left broken. Cati's family, forced to relive her death every single day, knowing her killer was out there breathing free. And Hannah's family, trapped in a nightmare of what-ifs and what really happened. Years passed, and the story faded from national headlines, but not from the hearts of those it tore apart, because justice delayed is justice denied. And John Blauvelt, he lived in the shadows, while Cati lay in a grave. But no matter how far he ran, no matter how many years passed, there's one thing men like John forget. Time doesn't erase murder. It doesn't erase a mother's grief. It doesn't erase a daughter's stolen future. The manhunt didn't stop, and neither did the FBI, because someone, somewhere knows something, and eventually, no matter how good you are at running, the past always catches up. July 20th, 2022, nearly 6 years after vanishing into the shadows, the manhunt for John Blauvelt came to an end. In a quiet corner of Medford, Oregon, far from the crime scene, far from the family he destroyed, John was finally caught. It wasn't a dramatic arrest. No high-speed chase. No standoff. Just a knock, an answer, and a pair of cold, steel handcuffs. John had been living under the radar, working odd jobs, blending in with the crowd, using fake names. But in the end, it was a tip, a quiet whisper in the right ear, that brought him down. Authorities moved quickly, and just like that, John Blauvelt, the man who once wore a uniform, who swore an oath to serve and protect, was flown back to South Carolina to face the justice he'd been running from. The trial was swift, but the emotions ran deep. Courtroom sketches captured the faces of those left behind. Cati's family sat in the front row, stone-faced, clutching tissues, holding hands, staring down the man who stole their daughter, their sister, their friend. The prosecution laid out the evidence, methodical, undeniable. John's history of abuse, his threats, the damning phone records. The defense? They had nothing but weak denials. There was no mercy left in that courtroom. No excuses. And finally, in September 2024, the verdict came down. Guilty. John Blauvelt was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No chance to ever walk free. No chance to vanish again. The gavel fell with a thunderous crack, sealing his fate forever. And as John was led away in shackles, the courtroom exhaled. Not because the pain was gone, but because, for the first time in years, justice had finally caught up. Justice was served, but it will never bring Cati back. For those who loved her, the pain never really goes away. It lingers in empty chairs, in birthday candles never blown out, in phone calls that will never come. Cati Blauvelt wasn't just a murder victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a bright, beautiful soul taken far too soon. Her family remembers her not for how she died, but for how she lived. Her laughter, her love of animals, her dreams of becoming something more. At her memorial, they shared stories of her kindness, her stubbornness, her fierce loyalty. They promised to keep her memory alive, not as a statistic, but as a shining light forever missed. And for the community of Simpsonville, South Carolina, the wounds run deep. Cati's death left scars on everyone who knew her, and even those who didn't. It forced an uncomfortable conversation about the dark side of relationships, about the signs of abuse we're often too afraid to see. Because the truth is, Cati tried to leave. She filed for divorce. She wanted her freedom. But leaving is often the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship. And Cati paid the ultimate price. Her story is a chilling reminder of the warning signs we must never ignore. Jealousy disguised as love. Control masked as protection. Isolation pretending to be care. Threats that escalate until it's too late. Cati's family now speaks out, sharing her story, warning others, begging anyone in a similar situation to seek help before it's too late. They've turned their pain into purpose, working with local organizations, pushing for stronger laws, and creating a scholarship in Cati's name, so her legacy lives on, because no one should ever feel trapped. No one should ever feel like their only way out is death. Cati deserved so much more, and while justice was served in that courtroom, the real victory will be saving the next Cati. Cati's story is heartbreaking, it's infuriating, and above all, it's a wake-up call. Because sometimes the greatest danger doesn't come from a stranger. It comes from the person who promised to love you the most. Abuse hides behind closed doors. It wears the face of a spouse, a partner, a parent. And unless we're willing to talk about it, unless we're willing to see it, we'll keep losing people like Cati. So, if you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please speak up. Reach out. There is help. There is hope. And you are never alone. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts on this case? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories. Because every voice matters, every story deserves to be heard, and every victim deserves justice. Stay safe. Stay aware. And remember, love should never hurt.